If you want to have power, if you want to be able to truly affect your environment, if you want to be able to set goals for yourself and reach those goals, there is truly nothing more important than learning how to lift yourself up, lift yourself up, lift yourself up till you live at least number 4, positive expectation and belief. And the how-to is a combination of brain chemistry and brain wiring. And we're going to be talking about all of this in tonight's show. And we've spoken about certain aspects of brain chemistry in previous shows because, you know, I often talk about the saliva and urine at-home test and the supplements. So if you're not somebody who has enough joy, if you're not somebody who has enough inner peace, then you definitely want to send an email to me or give me a quick call, and I will explain this at-home test and the supplements and where to get all of that.
That's a great start right there, the basics.
Exactly. That's right. Without that, they're going to have a lot of trouble having the life they desire.
Okay, now, what is the benefit of making even a small improvement in our brains, whether in our brain chemistry or in our brain wiring?
Well, you know, when they talk about NASA and NASA shoot to the moon, Mars, Venus, whatever it is, they talk about having to make very small corrections in the rocket as the rocket is just leaving the Earth. But when you make those small corrections in the beginning of a rocket's journey that's going to go millions of miles, then you can be 5% off in the beginning and you can end up so far away that anybody in the rocket wouldn't even be able to see the planet. So we're talking about course corrections here. If you make a 5% improvement today in your brain chemistry, then every area of your life is going to show an improvement, which means that if we talk about all the domains of life, 15, 17 domains of life, things that are different aspects of creating a life, then your life could be 40% improved, 60% improved, 80% improved if you do this consistently. And that's why it is so important that you do learn how to do this.
Wonderful, very encouraging. And I know, Susan, that you're very cautious about what you read, about what you listen to, and even about the people around you. Would you please explain to us why?
Yes. Well, you know, the more that you work on your self-talk, the more that you work on your brain chemistry, the more that you work on your brain wiring, the easier it is for you to stay grounded and stay present and avoid and eliminate any reactive behaviors. But what you're really looking for, and I love this quote, they don't know who said this, I wish I had, but peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. Now, having said that, isn't it easier if you are also in a place that's peaceful? Because the most important thing that you can do to improve your life is to stay in a state of positive expectation, joy, peace, friendliness, hopefulness, whatever it is, but always up to positive expectation. Now, the key is if you don't watch crazy things on TV, if you don't go to frightening movies, if you don't read Stephen King books, you're going to have much healthier brain chemistry and you're going to have an easier life. Again, the choice is up to you, but in the beginning when you're learning this, please understand that anytime you watch a movie about zombies or the end of the planet Earth, it's going to take a toll on you. And the toll is your brain chemistry.
That's wonderful to be conscientious of what we're paying attention to. Now, why is it more successful to set small goals than setting big goals when we are first learning how to really manage our minds and build our brains?
Well, this is really interesting. Again, it's all about brain chemistry and brain wiring. So when you set a small goal and you reach that goal, you get a rush of dopamine in your brain. And dopamine is one of the feel-good neurotransmitters. And so that works better. In the beginning, you don't have this habit of what I call the force of your will, which is an invisible muscle. With the force of my will and my connection to the divine, a lot of things happen that I want to have happen. With the force of my will and my connection to the divine, a lot of messes turn around or transform or end. And that is a good part of what I teach all my clients. And it's really thrilling. However, now I can do it about bigger things. In the beginning, I learned how to do it with parking spots in California and taxis in New York. And for years and years and years, I would practice getting a taxi right away. And I even got 2 taxis in the middle of blizzards in New York City in Midtown, which is impossible. So I developed a reputation of somebody who could always get you a cab. And the same thing is true out here with parking spots, which is our equivalent, right? So you practice with something small. You practice by having people call you who you want to talk to. I was thinking about my dear friends, the Chari family, who moved from Santa Barbara to Encinitas. And I was thinking I really had to give them a call because it was, just Diwali, the Hindu New Year, and I didn't have a chance. And I just, boom, Mrs. Chari called me. So that's what you do. You focus on what you want. You focus on what you want. You get that excitement. And then that's the dopamine rush. And then when you tell somebody else, you get an oxytocin rush from the success. Because when you share something with somebody that's positive, you get an oxytocin release in your brain. That's how it works.
What a wonderful gift, too. Now, I know you teach us how to use language not only when we talk to ourselves, but whenever we speak to other people, so that we can indeed improve our brains and our results. So would you speak to us about that?
Well, the 6-part conversation that I developed allows us to calm ourselves before we talk. Because you're never, thank you, Fred, that's great. You never are going to have, as they say, a second chance to make a first impression. So your opportunity is to communicate with people in a way that really motivates and inspires them. That's the key to all successful relationships. One of you has to be doing that. And since you're the one who's watching me and your partner may or may not be sitting there on the couch next to you, this is a message for you. Imagine how different your life will be if you calm yourself down before communicating. But imagine how different your life will be if you calm yourself down within a few minutes, period. So self-empathy is the beginning. That's to calm yourself. Empathy for others, calming them down. Then you can express yourself. Then you can motivate and inspire them through different skills to a solution that works for both of you. But it all begins with calming yourself before speaking. That is the number 1 tool.
So very helpful, isn't it?
Huge.
Yeah, there you go, for the perfect connection. Now, another way to change your brain chemistry in the short term is these certain activities, like listening to music. How valuable are these type of activities for people?
Well, before I learned about brain chemistry and how we could use supplements, and before I learned Herrmann brain dominance and understood the 4 quadrants and wiring of the brain, now you can take a look at that map for a minute. Fred, if you would put that up, the Herrmann brain dominance map, thank you so much. Peace is upper right, yellow. Happiness, joy, etc. is lower right, the good lower right. Because the not so good lower right can be fear and anger and sadness. So let's say you're in fear and anger and sadness and you want to get into peace and joy. Well, you can do it 3 different ways. You can get interested in facts and figures and numbers, so you can balance your checkbook, that's upper left. You can look at your to-do list and clean up your house or make lists or plan your next vacation, that's lower left. Or you can go into the upper right and just listen to music, meditate, take a walk in nature. Thank you, Fred. So that is the way to actually have more peace. And so, yes, music and art and playing with a baby, all these things can be great.
Great suggestions. So many things. You have to find out what you enjoy. Now, could you explain to us the importance of increasing our whole brain function for success?
Yes. And again, from the map that you already saw, depending on what your career is, depending on what's exciting to you, you're going to need more of one quadrant and less of another quadrant. I just spoke to a young woman over the weekend who is a resident in a medical program in Germany. She's not from Germany, and she's looking at possibilities for her future. So for her, this is great because she's a very smart young woman. She's really great with people, but she's also a visionary. And she was looking at things that were really exciting and interesting. So, of course, I was thinking of the Chari family because Rupert Chari is an MD, and her brother is a very interested and knowledgeable guy about technology. And so that's why the Chari Clinic is so valuable. They have both. They have being great with people, lower right brain. They have the data and the facts and figures about the medical world, that's upper left brain. They have, because of Deepak, her brother, they have the upper right, the visionary outside the box technology solutions. And because there are three of them, they're the brother, the sister, and the mom. Lower left, they get a lot of work done. So that is a solution that works for them. It may not be your solution, but you have to take a look at what your goals are, what your skills are. Give me a call for the free session, and I'll be happy to explain to you how you can use more of your brain to produce the results you're looking for, because it is truly an inside job. It doesn't have anything to do with those other people.
I love those people. I miss
The
them.
Charis,
Yes,
I know.
absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Now, no, a few nights ago, I personally was doing some paperwork, and it was so quiet and peaceful, and I just loved it. I accomplished so much, and I'm wondering, is there really a way to get ourselves into that state, even if our environment is not as desirable?
Yes, and that really is that quote about peace. You have to be able to bring yourself back to peace no matter what is going on. The Olympic athletes that win, that get the medals, are the ones who are able to focus on what they're doing, no matter their nerves or no matter the situation, no matter what's happening with the other people. And a lot of that has to do with visualization training, because visualization training is fascinating because the brain believes it's real. So if you close your eyes and you're, a high diver, so you imagine yourself climbing up the diving board and higher and higher and higher and higher. You imagine yourself walking out. For me, if I'm just doing this with my eyes open, I'm going to immediately feel like scared because it's so high. But when you do it and your eyes are closed, you don't have those thoughts. You're just visualizing. And so you imagine yourself there, and then you imagine yourself doing a perfect dive with no splash and your feet and legs in the perfect position. And then if this is something that you actually do, if this is what your sport is, you do this thousands and thousands and thousands of times when you're not in the pool, because that's one of the ways that Olympic coaches train their clients. The same thing is true for the rest of us. So if you close your eyes and imagine that sales meeting tomorrow where you have to convince somebody to buy, $50,000 or $500,000 of your product, or any other event you have coming up tomorrow, really visualize it. And a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about the best way to do that.
Prepping for what you're going through. That's awesome. Now, I know you just had a talk, you heard a talk about an expert in brain function. And can you share with us what that person had to say about fear?
Yeah, I'd never heard of this guy before. So Dr. Evian Gordon is an MD and also has a PhD. And he wrote a book called Brain Revolution, and I was listening to him talk about it. And this is a couple of quotes from him. "The mastery of fear is the gateway to success. The core fear is the fear of failure, and it's the driving dynamic. And the more you master your fear, the more you succeed. And for so many, the fear of success is even stronger than the fear of failure." And then he said, "If you're not convinced that you are moving toward your goal, and if you're not expressing that excitement when you speak to other people, then can you be successful?" So this is like sales 101. You know, when I'm teaching a sales team or an individual in sales, the degree to which you think your product is the best thing in the world that was ever developed or invented or created, and the degree you sound like you believe it was the most incredible product in the world, is the degree to which you get your foot in the door. And if your foot's in the door, it's the degree to which they listen to you with the possibility of buying. Or if they're already thinking about the possibility of buying, it's the degree to which they give you an order and the size of the order. In other words, it's crucial, because if I train you how to talk about the product and the benefits to the listeners, but you don't believe that it's fabulous and you don't resonate with excitement and enthusiasm, you're not going to do much business. And the same is true if you're working with me on dating, if you're working with me on how to take dating into marriage, the same is true. The difference is you're the product. You have to know how spectacular you, the product, is.
Oh, I'm excited just hearing about the possibilities with
That's
that
right.
enthusiasm.
That's right. Absolutely.
Now, why is it so important for people to set their goals as images?
Well, this is another thing that Dr. Gordon said, that goals have to be turned into images before the brain can make this happen. And of course, we know that visualization works. I was just telling you about Olympic athletes. And part of this visualization is that you have more clarity. Now, some of you will see images just now. If you close your eyes and you imagine yourself with an additional $50,000 in 2017, and you close your eyes, and if I ask you to imagine the $50,000 sitting on a table in front of you, you'll be able to do it. But most of you won't. Now, whether you can't because you don't believe in the possibility of having that much money, or whether you can't visualize it because your brain isn't very visual, it doesn't matter. So you have to find another way. You have to hear somebody telling you, "Oh my goodness, how did you manage to make $50,000 more this year?" Or you have to read something. In other words, you have to play with your brain in such a way that you get this visualization part to work for you, whether it's as simple as closing your eyes and seeing it or something a little bit different.
Really using your brain here. Now, what is the secret to developing a new default setting for your actions?
You have to practice, because that is the result of new neural pathways. So when you learned how to drive a car, something that for me was very difficult, by the way. So you learn how to drive a car and you sit in the car and you put on your seatbelt first, and then they would have you adjust your mirror because it wasn't your car, assuming it wasn't your own car, it was, you know, a driving instructor or your parents' car. So then this adjustment for the mirrors, the adjustment for the seat changes with different people driving. And then they teach you to look in your rearview mirror before you do anything. Then maybe they have you signal, you know, if you're out in public, if you're not in your own driveway or something. So you get to the point where you do all of this automatically. And now you know, after you've been driving for a couple of years, you don't have to think about it. You know, you just automatically put on your seatbelt. You automatically check the mirrors. You automatically do all that. That's called a neural pathway, or a series of neural pathways. That's called your default setting. That's all it is. And what you believe is a belief, what you think you are, what you think is important to you, guess what? It's a series of neural pathways. That's the bad news and the good news. So the good news is you can change your life radically, turn it upside down by deciding that that's what you want to do. That's the good news. And the bad news is that everything that's holding you in place, everything that's limiting you, are these things that are just neural pathways that can be replaced. You know, even somebody who's right-handed, if they break their arm and their arm is in a cast and they can't write with that hand, they're going to learn how to use the other hand. A lot of people become ambidextrous that way. They can use both hands. So that's what this is. It's just a belief system, neural pathways.
Gosh, so now the question is, what is possibility thinking?
Oh, good. This is just really fascinating to me. Possibility thinking, again,